Why, hello there, old sports. In the world of Hollow Knight and Hallownest specifically, there are many different ways in which you can dispatch your various bug enemies. Various charms give you many unique ways to deal damage to your foes, from violently sprouting out painful thorns from within your body, to giving live birth and throwing the babies at the enemies. There's many different ways to deal damage with charms. There's also spells, in which you can use various arcane rites to burn your foes into ash. But of course, I could never forget Old Reliable, the one form of damage that will always be with you throughout the entire game, one that is never limited, and that of course, is the nail. Basic nail swings may be able to carry you most of the game, but for those who dive a little deeper into the secrets of Hallownest, you'll find 3 elusive nail masters hidden in the world, who will each teach you a nail art of your own. Learning a nail art allows you to channel energy into your blade, and then unleash it in various different ways to lay waste to your foes. The retired Paint Master Shio will teach you the Great Slash, which allows you to unleash a wide arc dealing heavy damage to your foes. The enthusiastic Nail Master Motto will teach you the Cyclone Slash, allowing you to turn into a spinning whirlwind of destruction. And there's also Oro, he teaches you the Dash Slash too, who cares. With these 2 extremely versatile nail arts and Dash Slash, I have decided to not only beat Hollow Knight, but its Dream No More ending, which requires us to do a few extra things before taking on the final boss, the Radiance. Now, since you can't actually reach any of the Nail Masters before running into something you need to use your basic nail swings on, I decided that I would just start the game with all 3 nail arts in my possession. Now, continuing to be the worst nail art, I can't actually use Dash Slash at the beginning of the game due to not having a dash, but the other 2 will definitely come in handy until then. In terms of rules, I am only allowed to deal damage to enemies using nail arts, and if I ever hit an enemy with an attack that isn't a nail art, I need to Alt F4 out of the game to reset back to my last save/checkpoint. On top of that, the other major rule is that I am not allowed to use spells for any reason. I'm allowed to pick them up, but I am not allowed to actually cast any spells. Besides Focus, but I don't really think that counts as a spell. It's more of a basic ability. But you can argue about that in the comments if you want, because I don't fucking care. And as mentioned earlier, the ultimate goal of this challenge is to not only destroy all the Dreamers, but to get both halves of the King Soul to turn into the Void Heart, which I can then use to fight the Radiance. With all that being said, let's begin the video properly. Now, upon actually starting the game and entering the King's Pass, I kinda came to the realization that these first few areas are probably going to be more tedious than anything. Because the enemies here are intended to die from 1 or 2 normal swings anyway, so our nail arts, which do more damage, obviously will just one-shot them, so it's kinda just tedious to wait for the nail art to charge, but it's not too much of a problem. Also, while I'm here, I make sure to pogo over the spikes to reach Fury of the Fallen. Fury of the Fallen is a charm that activates when we're at 1 HP, and it gives us a 1.75 times damage multiplier for as long as we're in that state. Now the thing is, this is the only charm that affects nail arts, so that means I'm going to use it, because I want to make the video more interesting. And it's also the reason I'm not playing on Steel Soul mode, because since this is the only charm that affects nail arts, I wanted to actually use it and not worry about dying. Now, once I actually reached the Forgotten Crossroads, I kinda just started doing what I would do on a normal playthrough of Hollow Knight, which is to just go around rescuing whichever grubs I can. But eventually I realized this wasn't really worth it. Now this is partially because, 1, I can't even reach half the grubs anyway because I can't pogo off of enemies. I can pogo off of spikes because I can't do damage to them, but enemies is not allowed. But then the other thing too is that usually the reason I'm getting all of these grubs rescued is for a mask shard, but since I'm going to be using Fury of the Fallen, it's better to keep my max HP low so I can manipulate it easier. Okay, now to be honest, the enemies in the crossroads are very easy to dodge, thus I'm not going to be taking much damage to them, thus it kinda negates the one downside of Fury of the Fallen, which is obviously having to stay at low health. So, functionally, it just means that I'm able to bulldoze through the crossroads, killing anything that gets in my way with my super damage attacks. that are buffed by being nail arts, obviously, and also by having Fury of the Fallen active. I went to go fight Gruz's mother just to kind of check how much damage I had, and she could barely even start her first attack by the time I killed her, which is ridiculous, but I'm not complaining. I also almost forgot to mention that I also started with the Nail Master's Glory Charm, because at about this point I can rescue Sly, and since I have all the nail arts, he would go down to his basement and I could get the charm from him, so I just figured it would be fine to start with the charm considering I can get it like 2 minutes into the playthrough anyway. Next up is False Knight, and this boss is a joke. It's almost like giving yourself things you're not supposed to have at this point in the game. Breaks progression or something. Who would have thought? Jokes aside, the thing about this fight is that the fight doesn't really end until the False Knight actually breaks the floor, but the thing is he can't break the floor unless he finishes his tantrum attack. And the funny thing is, with Cyclone Slash and Fury of the Fallen together, we can kill him, or I guess knock him down, before he can even finish the tantrum attack, which means if we wanted, we could just stun lock him infinitely, which I think is very funny. Now, I really only defeated False Knight because I wanted to come back and defeat him later for the Essence Failed Champion would drop, but the only thing for us to do now is go on to Green Path. But the problem is that there's an Elder Balder in our way, and there's no way we can defeat it, and we are okay. Upon entering Green Path, I realized that I'm not going to be able to use the skip near where you first meet Hornet, because I both can't pogo off of enemies to get up there, or use the fireball to skip it, or to make the distance. So that means I'm gonna have to go the long way around, which is unfortunate, but I'll deal with it. Skipping through my trek through Green Path, because I'm gonna be honest, it wasn't that interesting, I reached the first Moss Knight arena, and unlike the other enemies where I could just run by them, I actually had to fight this enemy. And it also has a shield, which is mildly annoying. But after defeating that knight by baiting out its swings, I come to the least important choice in the whole run. Do I spare Zote, or do I not spare Zote? I spared him. I didn't plan on fighting him in the Coliseum or anything. I just wanted the money that the Vengeful King would drop, to be completely honest. Now, before fighting Hornet, I went out of my way to rest at the bench near the Stag Station, so I would have a safe checkpoint. Then from there, I decided to lower my health down to 1 mask, then go back to where I first fought that Moss Knight, and then got the nearby Lifeblood Cocoon, so now I can have the damage boost from Fury of the Fallen, but I can also take 1 or 2 hits before dying. And upon actually reaching Hornet herself, including the time it took to mash through her dialogue, and for the time it took me to pick up the Mothwing Cloak, which probably shouldn't count, this fight took less than 45 seconds. I didn't mention this when I was talking about the nail arts individually, but Cyclone Slash does fuck tons of damage, especially with Fury of the Fallen activated. With either of the final 2 nail upgrades, you can outdamage a Shaman's Stone Abyss Shriek without having Fury active. It is ridiculous. But then again, Abyss Shriek is a lot easier to use than Cyclone Slash because it requires less commitment, but that doesn't really matter. I just think it's funny if you look at the raw numbers that Cyclone Slash does a lot of damage. So even only having a fraction of that with the old nail or the first nail upgrade, you're still doing about 33 to 66 damage of Cyclone Slash, which again, Hornet only has like 250 HP. It's ridiculous. Now that I have Dash, I go down the Fog Canyon into the Queen's Station, but instead of entering the Fungal Wastes from there, I decide to take the Stag back to Dirtmouth and then enter through the Crossroads entrance to the Fungal Wastes. I did this specifically so I can skip a small portion of the wastes, as well as I can get to Leg Eater more quickly, but upon actually reaching Leg Eater, I realized that none of his charms are going to be helpful to me. Because the thing is, nail arts aren't affected by fragile strength. Fragile heart wouldn't help because, as I said, I want to keep my maximum health low so I can manipulate it easier. So that just leaves fragile greed, but the thing is, since I'm using Fury of the Fallen, that means that I'm probably going to end up dying eventually, and I don't want to have to keep running back to repair the fragile charms, so I decided to just save my money and not buy any of them. And this line of reasoning was immediately proven true when I died to the Shroomel Ogre arena while trying to get the Charm Notch. Now thankfully, like I said, I'm not playing on Steel Soul because I accounted for this happening, and our shade actually goes down in 1 swing, or 1 Great Slash is probably the better way to put it. Now as I said earlier, Fury of the Fallen is the only charm that actually affects nail arts, but I do want to have as many charm notches as I can, so this arena I feel like is worth my time to complete. From there, I had little trouble traversing the fungal wastes, because the thing is, I feel like the enemies here are really easy to defeat if you can just one-shot them, which I mean that applies to everything in the game. But I guess I just mean that these enemies tend to be pretty easy to get the first hit off of, but after that they tend to be super aggressive, like the mantises for example. But if I one-shot them, they never can get aggressive because they're in pieces on the ground. And with the power of bodily dismemberment, I'm able to get all the way through the Mantis village and get the Mantis Claw. And then from here the game kind of branches out because I can go a few different places next, but ultimately I decided that I'm going to fight the Mantis Lords while I'm here, and then take the entrance into Deepnest where I have plans from there, but I'll get to that as it's necessary. Now for some reason I didn't decide to go and take off my extra charm that was causing me to be overcharmed before fighting the Mantis Lords, but thankfully there was actually a lifeblood cocoon above their arena, so that gave me an extra hit before I would die. And the thing about the Mantis Lords is that the first phase is very slow, so I can get the occasional Cyclone Slash off or a partial Cyclone Slash in between Great Slashes, but once the second phase starts and there's 2 Mantis Lords on the field, I can't really do that anymore, and I just need to stick to using the Great Slash sparingly, because if I try to take every opportunity to damage them, I will get hit, and that's not good, obviously, and I want to conserve my lifeblood as long as I can, and thankfully I did, and by the time I lost it, they were already close to dying anyways. Now the thing about Deepnest is that it's an area that is at its best the first time you experience it, because lots of the challenge, I guess, of Deepnest comes from not knowing where you're supposed to go, and if you don't have a lantern, navigating in the dark. However, I know the world of Hallownest better than I know my own hometown, so I know how to navigate Deepnest, that's what I'm trying to get at. And the thing about the enemies in Deepnest is that most of the annoying ones or the difficult ones don't even start appearing until you're past some of the dark rooms, but since I'm not going there yet, that's not even relevant. All I have to deal with is little spiders and the corpse crawlers. All that to say is, just like in the early days of my channel, I don't really have much to say about Deepnest. My goals here really just come down to grabbing the tram pass, going to the east of the hot spring to find the inactive tram, and then take it all the way to the ancient basin underneath the city. But, of course, we will have to come back here later for a few things, so hopefully Deepnest puts up more of a challenge then. Upon actually reaching the ancient basin, my first plan of action was to rush towards the pale ore that's guarded by the little 2 mini-Moloch enemies. And for some reason, I thought it would be a good idea to fight these guys at 1 HP for the Fury bonus. Now, I really should have died here, I'm surprised I didn't, because these guys can be kinda janky, especially with how their spit arcs, so it can be inconsistent on whether you take damage or not, but I did manage to get the pale ore without any difficulty. After a quick casual stroll up an elevator shaft, I head to the west to go to the fountain area so I can talk to Hornet so I can get that cutscene out of the way, because I also need to do things on that side of the city, mainly upgrading my nail. Now the cool thing is that nail arts do a percentage amount of your base nail damage, and so for Great Slash and Dash Slash that's 2.5, and then each individual strike of the Cyclone Slash is 1.25. So once we upgrade our nail a couple times, that in combination with Fury will start doing stupid amounts of damage. But for now I only have enough money and resources to upgrade my nail twice into the channeled nail, but that's still good enough for now. In fact, from this point forward, I was a lot more sparing with how I used Fury of the Fallen, and I didn't try to have it constantly activated. While I was in the west side of the city, I also decided to unlock Relic Seeker Lem's shop so I could sell him all of the trash I wasn't going to use. But something you definitely can get daily use out of is a free subscription to the Puppet Wraith YouTube channel on YouTube. I feel like that last part was a bit redundant. Jokes aside, if you like these videos, please consider liking and subscribing. It helps me out a lot, and if you ever feel like it, you can always unsubscribe later. Anyways, back to the video. After pawning off all my trash to Lem, I made my way back into the eastern side of the city, where I cut through some guards and a gorgeous husk or two. Specifically 1, because there's only 1 in the whole game. And then from there, I unlocked the King's Station. From there, instead of returning to Dirtmouth or buying supplies elsewhere, I decided to immediately go up the nearby tower to the elevator that leads us to the resting grounds. And then from there, I navigated over to the Dreamer Memorial Shrine, and then entered the Dream World unconsensually. I don't know why I said entered the Dream World like I was the one choosing to do that when technically the Dreamers were the ones throwing me in there, but that's irrelevant. After claiming the Dream Nail as my own, I cut my way out of the dream that the Dreamers placed me in, and awake next to the seer, who instructs me to gather a bunch of essence. Now, since I can't use spells, that means I can't use the Desolate Dive to break floors, and if I can't break floors, I can't escape the Soul Sanctum, and if I want to fight Soulmaster for his essence, I need to do that, or be able to do that. So I'm going to make sure to pick up all the dream trees around the world so I can avoid doing that so I don't get stuck in the Soul Sanctum for the rest of eternity. Once I gathered all the essence in the dream tree next to the seer, I went and fought Zero. And the thing about Zero is that I was so confident in my ability to defeat him that I didn't even put any effort into dodging, until I reached 1 HP of course, because I don't want to die to Zero of all people. But funnily enough, by the time I even reached 1 HP, he was already almost dead anyway, so I barely even got to fight at 1 HP. So, yeah. Daily reminder that Zero is a very easy boss. No wonder your little rebellion failed. You probably walked up to the palace and got a swirly from the king's mold outside. But after defeating Zero, I finally did return to Dirtmouth, and since the Howling Cliffs are just over there to the west, I decided that since I had the Dream Nail, now would be the perfect time to go over there, to kill Gorb, and to get the Whispering Root Dream Tree that's there. I don't know what was wrong with me, but for some reason I was just not taking Gorb seriously, and he almost got me down to 1 health, but I'm just going to chalk that up as a moment where I'm using my health as a resource, because that makes me sound smarter and more competent. Since Green Path is connected to the Howling Cliffs, I descended through Green Path over to the Stone Sanctuary, where I then fought No Eyes. Now going into this fight, I really hoped that Dash Slash would be even remotely useful, because she spends a lot of the time running away, and the extended reach on Dash Slash might be able to help. But the problem is we can't really dash much in the air in this fight, because you need better control to dodge the ghosts flying everywhere. So, yet another L for Dash Slash, I guess. I also figured that since Green Path and the Stone Sanctuary specifically is so close to the Fog Canyon, that I could descend through there, into the Fungal Wastes, and then reach Elder Hu's grave and then fight him for his essence. Now, funnily enough, due to the fact that when Elder Hu teleports back into the arena after doing his longer slam attack, he's usually at around the same height, it's just where on the x-axis that he is. That means Dash Slash was actually fucking useful for once, because the extended reach on the attack was much easier to utilize, when again, the boss only really teleports in on an x-axis and he retains a similar height. And spoiler alert, that is the most useful Dash Slash will ever be in this whole video, so, yeah, quite unfortunate. Keeping the Essence train going, I went back to the Crossroads to fight the False Knight, aka Failed Champion, before the Crossroads got infected. Now, unfortunately, unlike last time where I was basically always in control of the fight at all times and could just endlessly stunlock False Knight forever if I wanted to, Failed Champion is a bit different. He's bigger, he's faster, and he is also stronger too. He is the first member of not the DK crew, this is a completely different thing. Jokes aside, his increased speed and strength is no joke, and then also the increased health doesn't hurt him either, it definitely hurts us. But thankfully, I'm overconfident enough to stay at low health for most of the fight, which means that his health difference isn't that much bigger because due to our nail upgrades and the multiplying effect of Fury of the Fallen, he isn't that much tankier, but he's still a threat, so he went from being negative threat to a posable threat, even if he isn't the most dangerous thing in this game for us. Regardless, on my first attempt I'm able to defeat him and take the essence as my prize. Before moving on, I went back to the resting grounds and talked to Seer to get some of my rewards for the essence I've collected so far, but then from there, I went into the Crystal Peaks. Now, the thing about the Crystal Peaks is obviously that it's more of a platforming area than anything, and even some of the enemies here have shells that are so, thick and crystallized that our nail can't pierce through it, so the only way to kill them is with spells, but again, that's not allowed for this run, so all we can do is avoid those enemies. However, the biggest inconvenience that this challenge brought upon us for this part of the run is that I can't pogo off of enemies, therefore I can't get the Pale Ore at Hallownest's crown this early because I don't have the wings yet. Now, Seer already gave me a Pale Ore, but I want a second one to upgrade my nail another time. But like I said, I can't get to the one at Hallownest's crown, and even if I come back later once I have the wings, it's more convenient for me to get that second Pale Ore another place. But just know that it kind of threw a wrench into my plan. Regardless, I eventually got the Crystal Heart, and then retreated back to Dirtmouth. Speaking of not having wings, after returning to Dirtmouth, I make my way down to the Ancient Basin so I can fight the Broken Vessel for the wings that it's guarding. Now, if you didn't know, the Broken Vessel is very squishy for a boss at this point in the game, because to even get here, you're supposed to have the Crystal Dash, which requires you to get a bunch of stuff beforehand, so you probably already have 1 or 2 nail upgrades, so this thing melts pretty quickly. That is, if you're not doing a very stupid challenge run, because the thing about this boss is it's kind of bullet helly, especially that headbang attack, which is exclusive to this version of the boss and not the upgraded rematch. But it's still annoying to deal with, and since I only had 5 HP, I was being very just goofy and not really taking the fight seriously, and I almost died. But ultimately I didn't, which is the real victory, I think. But if Broken Vessel barely failed to beat me, Lost Kin kicked my ass. It took at least 20 minutes for me to beat this boss, and that was only because of the stupid balloons, because the balloons spawn just about as fast, if not a little faster, than I can get nail arts out. So you have to be really careful with making sure to hit the boss and clear at least 1 or 2 balloons per nail strike. Add on to that the fact that Lost Kin has roughly as much health as the Hollow Knight, and you have a recipe for disaster. Now, as I said, this boss took me about 15 to 20 minutes of attempts before I could defeat it, and it kind of just came down to a mixture of strategy and getting lucky. I needed both skills to get through this fight, or luck isn't really a skill, it's luck, but you get what I mean. Regardless, eventually our Lost Kin went down, and I was able to claim the 400 essence as my prize, which is very much appreciated. Because keep in mind that the Soul Master is not a boss we're fighting, or specifically the Soul Tyrant, and to even just replace that boss's essence, I need to grab pretty much every essence I can from all of the Whispering Roots around the kingdom. So yeah, this 400 essence is very much appreciated. Since the entrance to the ancient basin is right next to a tram that goes to Deepnest, I decided that I would go there now to kill Hera, and since Nosk was on the way there, I figured that would be the perfect place to get my second Pale Ore to upgrade my nail for the last time. Or, specifically, I'm not going to get the last 3 Pale Ores after this to upgrade my nail to the true pure nail, but I didn't feel like doing the extra stuff to get it, so for this run, this is the last nail upgrade. Now, yes, Nosk is very annoying when you can only use slower attacks to hit it instead of just slashing away to your heart's content, but this is the hand that we have dealt ourselves, so I had to figure out something. And my plan was just to stick under the little ledge on the left side of the arena, and then just use a Great Slash whenever Nosk would run by us, which would do damage and keep us safe. And then when it would jump into the ceiling, I would move obviously to avoid that and then return to my spot. However, it's Nosk at the end of the day, so it's not like it's that big of a deal, it's just mildly annoying, and we take our Pale Ore and move on. After taking a quick detour to go kill Galleon for his essence, I make my way over to the distant village to go kill Hera, and since I have the wings, I use the Crystal Dash and Wing combo to go over to the secret entrance to skip half of the Beast's Den, and then like I said, just kill Hera from there and then skedaddle. Once I escape Deepnest, I made my way back to the City of Tears to use my newly earned Pale Ore to upgrade my nail one more time. I forgot how much Geo I needed to actually upgrade the nail, and I felt too lazy to look it up at the moment, so I just decided to sell all my relics to Lem before going there, and thankfully it paid off because I had more than enough money to upgrade the nail. Now that I have another nail upgrade, and since I'm just in the City of Tears, I thought now would be the best time to fight the Watcher Knights to reach Lurien. Now, for some reason I thought dropping the chandelier was necessary to take out one of the Watcher Knights before the fight even began, taking the total number down from 6 to 5, but ultimately I don't think it would have mattered either way. Now, I only managed to do this once in the fight, but even without Fury, 2 fully extended Cyclone Slashes was enough to kill 1 Watcher Knight, so that means they're not that bulky. Combine that with their somewhat slow speed, and that makes this fight not really that difficult. And then keep in mind again, I only have 5 masks, and I'm not even dodging half the time because I want to use Fury of the Fallen. Or it's not that I'm not dodging, it's that sometimes I'm spending health to deal damage with the info in the back of my mind that knows that it's getting closer to being able to use Fury, which will help the fight immensely. I was going to mention that once Fury activates, I play a lot better or a lot more cautiously than when it isn't active, but the problem is that these bosses die so quickly once I actually hit the Fury threshold that it's kind of hard to tell. Either way, once the Watcher Knights fall, I can take the Geo they're guarding, and more importantly, I can take Lurien's life. 2 Dreamers down, 1 to go. Now, since I'm in the city, I was pretty close to the entrance to the Kingdom's Edge, so I went there with the intention of fighting the second Hornet battle so I could get the King's Brand and thus access to the Abyss. Now, at least compared to last time, Hornet put up a lot more of a fight, and this is partially because I didn't have Fury active, but the reason I didn't have Fury active is because of the other reason, which is that she moves very fast, so it can be hard to dodge her sometimes, especially considering I don't have Shade Cloak yet, so I don't really have my get out of jail free card that I would use in something like Godhome. But again, it's just she moves very fast, so you have to be more careful, thus playing for Fury would not be very optimal, it would be very dangerous. Thankfully, just chipping away at her health with Great Slashes and the occasional Cyclone Slash when the opportunity arose was very effective. Hornet may be a lot less fragile compared to her first fight, but compared to some of the future bosses we'll be fighting with roughly the same equipment, she doesn't have that much health comparatively. Ultimately, despite her speed advantage, eventually Hornet goes down, and I get access to the King's Brand. Now, since I didn't have Isma's Tear, that means I wouldn't be able to get into the Queen's Gardens via the main entrance, which leaves Deep Nest. So after returning to the area one last time, I made my way up into the Queen's Gardens. And while I probably should have gone and gotten the Shade Cloak first so I could just do everything I needed to here in one swoop, I didn't think of that because Past Me is an idiot, so I'll come back here later. But what I did do is I just kind of went around the whole area and unlocked the Stag Station, and then also ended up killing Marmu, which coincidentally, well, it's not even really a coincidence, I planned it, so it's not coincidentally at all, I'm just stupid, I don't know why I wrote that. But anyways, I have 1800 Essence now, meaning I can return to the Seer and awake the Dream Nail. Or make it the Awoken Dream Nail, you get what I mean. But after that, I did actually finally go down to the Abyss. I turned on the lighthouse, and then got the Shade Cloak before using the Dream Gate to teleport out of the Abyss so I didn't have to climb all the way back up. The Knight already had to do that once, I don't think they want to do it again. Now that I have both the Shade Cloak and the Awoken Dream Nail, I decide now is a good time to go into the White Palace to get that half of the King's Soul. And funnily enough, through a combination of good platforming and face tanking, I managed to not have to hit any of the wings molds. Or, I didn't have to use any of them for platforming, I mean, so I can technically say my rules aren't broken, because I was kind of worried about that going into the palace. I was worried I was going to have to pogo off of them, but it was a non-issue, so thank God. Now, unfortunately, I lost the footage for the Traitor Lord fight, and by lost, I mean I just didn't record it because I forgot to press record because I'm stupid, but I hope you guys can forgive me. I hope that you weren't looking forward to some riveting Traitor Lord boss fight gameplay. Just know that I did defeat the boss, it wasn't really that difficult, and I moved on and got the second half of the King's Soul. Anyways, after remembering the night's past, uniting the Abyss, and claiming the Void Heart as my own, I make my way back to the Temple of the Black Egg, one final showdown to decide the fate of Hallownest. And goddammit, I forgot to kill Monomon. Okay, now I was going to do the whole, it's the final battle, we can do this, let's get ready thing again, but the momentum is lost, so I'm just gonna fight the Hollow Knight. Now, funnily enough, the Pure Vessel has trained me for this fight kinda in reverse, because I'm so used to fighting the Pure Vessel that when I go back and fight the normal Hollow Knight battle, it feels a lot easier because things aren't moving at the speed of sound. Now, this does have the slight downside of occasionally I'm going to expect an attack to be faster than it is, and then fall into it because I dodged too quickly, or I dodged assuming the attack would be quicker, but that was pretty rare in this fight, and again, I was kind of playing for the Fury of the Fallen play, because I'm going to get healed when I go into the next boss fight anyway, because it's in the Dream World, so the Hollow Knight was no threat. I knew I was going to win this fight, and I knew I could be as careless as I wanted, because again, I'm so used to fighting Pure Vessel that this fight is extremely easy in comparison. Also, as the boss fight goes on, the Hollow Knight becomes more and more susceptible to extended Cyclone Slashes, so this poor thing never really had a chance in the first place. Poor Hollow Knight, you deserve better. I hope you get your own game. That would be really nice. Maybe it could be like Sekiro, because they would have like a prosthetic arm or something. I don't know. Anyways, getting into the fight with the Radiants, this battle was pretty goofy, because I started out trying to Cyclone Slash her, but that didn't work, so I quickly switched to just trying to do Great Slashing, because I figured I couldn't get a full extended Cyclone Slash on her due to how the weird air hitboxes are with this boss specifically, so like I said, I just figured Great Slash would be more effective. This was also one of the few bosses in the whole challenge run that I actually healed during the middle of it, because usually I would either heal before or after a boss, but this was one of the few times I actually healed mid-boss fight, because I wanted an extra hit going into the platform phase, because I just felt like, hey, I should have a safety buffer, and thankfully I did. Because fun fact, I was listening to headphones connected to my phone during this battle instead of listening to the game audio, because I didn't want, if I was listening to music on my computer, I didn't want that to be picked up in the background. So the downside to this was I couldn't hear any of the game audio, also known as sound cues. So during the middle of the platform phase, a white wall came out of nowhere that I couldn't hear because I was being dumb, and it almost killed me, but thankfully I managed to survive. And then from there I just continued to choose Great Slashes, and eventually I was able to actually find an angle to where I could Cyclone Slash her for maximum damage, and in no time the fight was over. Or it wasn't technically over because I still had to climb, but you get what I mean, the actual combat part of the fight was over. Now while I was actually climbing, I was a bit worried that this challenge would fail right at the very end, because the thing is, the Radiance only dies to nail swings, so I didn't know if the nail art would actually count for this final hit, but thankfully it did, and I finally decided, swords are overrated. I'm going to beat you to death with tentacles. So with all that said and done, I can finally say, yes, you can beat Hollow Knight with only nail arts if you give them to yourself at the beginning of the save file, but that's irrelevant. For this video, I tried going back to an older style of how I made videos, like a couple months ago, so I hope this video is still decent because I tried to mix how I did things a couple months ago with some of the experience I've learned over time. So hopefully this is the best of both worlds, but if it isn't, please tell me down below so I know which direction to start making videos in next time. Now of course, I'd like to thank you all for watching and for giving me some of your time today. It really does mean the world to me. And of course, I'd also like to thank my Patreon members, Golden1 and Somebody, as well as my YouTube channel members, Wally73, Sven Biscuit, and Namarin98 for their financial support. It truly means the world to me. With all that being said, I don't want to drag out this video too much longer, but I just wanted to say thank you again, and I guess I just thought maybe it's been a while since I've done a Hollow Knight challenge, so I thought I would make one because I know you guys like them, and I like making them. I just haven't really had many ideas on what to do recently, so for this video I decided to take an older video I had that I have since deleted, I think, and just spruce it up a bit and try to improve it. So hopefully this video is satisfactory, and if it isn't, please tell me so again I can change going forward and try to be even better. Thank you all for watching, have a good night, and see you on the flip side.